Okay, so this is the key to section 7.4 part A, and basically in this section in part A you're adding or subtracting rational expressions that have unlike denominators. Alright, so the first thing you have to do in each of these is factor. Remember, the first step is to factor the denominators, and then once you factor the denominators, you find the least common denominator. Would be the next step. Then you would write equivalent fractions. Okay? Alright, so that's the process we're going to go through. Alright, so when you do number one, though, if you look at the denominator, this is a monomial, and this is a monomial. So we can't factor these denominators. Let's just find the LCD. So the coefficients, the least common multiple of 8 and 10 would be 40. So far my LCD is going to be 40. And if you look at your variable, I have one factor of x here. I have two factors of x here. So remember, you need to use the one with the largest number of factors. So I need x squared. All right, so that's your least. So make sure you use the least common denominator. All right, now what we're going to do next is I'm going to write equivalent fractions. I want to write two fractions with that denominator. So 40x squared, 40x squared. Okay. Now I want to write an equivalent fraction. So I want to know what fraction is equivalent to 5 over 8x. That's what I'm interested in finding. All right. So basically, you're asking yourself, 8 times what is 40? Well, I've got to multiply 8 by 5 to get 40. Then you ask yourself, all right, now I need an x squared. I have an x, but I need an x squared. So x times what is x squared? And so the answer is 5x. So always check yourself. 5 times 8 is 40. X times x is x squared. Now, what you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So then I get 5x times 5, which is 25x. So it becomes 25x. All right. So 5 divided by 8x is equivalent to 25x with the denominator 40x squared. Okay. Now 5 divided by 8x has an infinite number of equivalent fractions, but there's only one that has this denominator. Okay, so that's what we're interested in. So 11 over 10x squared has an infinite number of equivalent fractions, but there's only one that has this denominator. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here that we did here. 10 times what is 40? Well, the answer is 4. I have an x squared. I need an x squared, so I'm not missing anything. So if you look at this and look at this, are you missing anything? The answer is no. So all you had to do here was just multiply this denominator by 4. But what I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So 11 times 4 is 44. And now I can write these two fractions as 1 because the denominator is the same. So I'm going to get 40x squared in the denominator, so it's your common denominator. And then you're going to say 25x plus 44. All right. And now the next thing is to factor the numerator. Factor the numerator, so that way to see if any of these factors would be divisible in the denominator. All right, and if you look at the numerator, they're 25x and 44, other than 1, they have no other common factor. So basically, that's your answer right here. So your answer is 25x plus 44 divided by 40x squared. Okay, now number 2. So remember, the first step is to factor your denominators. So x plus 3 I can't do anything with, so it's prime. Now x squared minus 9 I can. So x squared minus 9, remember, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. That's going to be x minus 3 times x plus 3. So that's what this is, minus 5 divided by x plus 3. Okay, so once you factor your denominators, now you're going to find your LCD. So remember, your LCD must include every factor that's involved. So x minus 3 is going to be in the LCD. Okay, question is, how many do you need? Well, I have one factor here. I don't have any here, so I need 1. X plus 3 is your next factor, so I'm going to need it. The question is how many? I have one factor here. I have one factor here, so I need 1. You don't say 2. You need 1. Now, if you use 2, there's nothing wrong with that except it's not going to be the least, and you're going to have some issues trying to reduce all this. Okay, so always use the least. So there's your LCD. So now the next step is to write 2 fractions with that denominator. So x minus 3, x plus 3, x minus 3, x plus 3. All right, so you're going to write 2 fractions with the denominator being the LCD. Okay, so now we're going to write equivalent fractions. 10 divided by x minus 3 times x plus 3 is equivalent to what fraction with that same denominator? See, the denominator is the same. There's nothing missing. So basically you're saying x minus 3 times x plus 3 times 1 is x minus 3 times x plus 3. But again, what you did to the denominator, you did to the numerator. Now, you really didn't have to do this. You know that since the denominators are the same, then the numerators have to be the same. 1 times 10 is 10. All right, over here. I have an x plus 3, okay? I am missing the x minus 3, so I need to multiply x plus 3 by x minus 3. Now, what I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. Notice I'm putting these in parentheses. All right, so I'm going to get, and then I'm going to go ahead and distribute this. So that's going to be right here. That's going to be 5x minus 15. Okay, now that's going to equal, and I'm going to write this as one fraction now. So my fraction is going to have that denominator, x minus 3, x plus 3. Okay, so I'm going to get 10, subtract. Now remember, you're subtracting, be careful with subtraction. In a previous lesson, you're subtracting all of this. So be on the safe side, put that in parentheses. So you're subtracting 5x minus 15. Now get rid of the parentheses, so distribute that negative 1 through there. I'm going to get 10 minus 5x plus 15 divided by x minus 3 times x plus 3. And then combining like terms in the numerator, I'm going to get negative 5x plus 25 divided by x minus 3, x plus 3. All right, now remember the next step is to factor out, your numerator to see if anything can reduce. Now, if you factor the numerator, I just want you to notice something. You could factor out a negative 5, so you could say negative 5 times x minus 5, because a negative 5 times x is a negative 5x. A negative 5 times a negative 5 is a positive 25, all over the LCD. But you notice that there's nothing that can reduce. So either this or this is your answer. It does not matter. So I'm just going to go ahead and write the first one. So negative 5x plus 25 divided by x minus 3 times x plus 3. Okay? All right, now the next one. So notice that in number 3, this is a monomial, so I'm not going to do anything with terms of factoring. This I can't factor, that's prime. X plus 1, I can't do anything else to it. Now let's find the LCD. So the LCD must include every factor you see. My first factor is a 7. I have one factor here. I don't have any here, so I need a 7. My next factor is an x. I have one factor here. I don't have any here. Now be careful. That right here is one factor. That's x plus 1. Okay, so I need one factor of x. And then my next factor is x plus 1. I need one factor of that one. So the LCD is 7 times x plus 1. Now you're going to write 2 fractions with that denominator. So 7x times x plus 1 plus 7x times x plus 1. All right, now let's see what's missing. So I have a 7x. I need a 7x, so I already have it. I need an x plus 1. I don't have, so I need to multiply this by x plus 1. So I'm going to say times x plus 1. Now, what I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. So 5 times x plus 1. Okay, make sure you put that in parentheses. Now you're going to distribute this. Make sure you distribute. So I get x times 5 is 5x. 5 times 1 is 5. So that's my numerator. So 5 divided by 7x is equivalent to 5x plus 5 divided by 7x times x plus 1. Alright, over here, I have an x plus 1. Alright, I need an x plus 1, so I already have those. What I don't have is I want this. So what I don't have is that 7x. So I got to multiply that, how much you put in parentheses, times 7x. Now, what I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. And so now 2 times 7x is 14x. Okay. Now, once I write equivalent fractions, now I can write this as one fraction because now the denominators are the same. So I get 7x times x plus 1. Now the numerator, 5x plus 14x is 19x plus 5. And then remember, you want to factor the numerator so that way you can see if you can reduce anything. And in this case, there's nothing I can factor. So there's your answer. So the answer is 19x plus 5 divided by 7x times x plus 1. All right, number 4. Okay, so number 4, you have x minus 6, 6 minus x. Now, what I need for you to notice is that the x minus 6 and 6 minus x are opposites. So note, x minus 6 and 6 minus x are opposites. So it is a lot easier if you use opposites here. Now, you can use the LCD being, well, I shouldn't say this. You can use a common denominator being x minus 6 and 6 minus x. But the least common denominator, you have to use the opposites. Alright, so that means this. And if you remember that 42 divided by 6 minus x, 42 divided by 6 minus x, you want to rewrite 6 minus x as x minus 6. So that's what you want to rewrite. Okay, so basically there you can do one of two things. To get that x minus 6, you could multiply both numerator and denominator by -1. Okay, which you do the denominator to the numerator. And so notice my numerator is now -42. My denominator, when I distribute, -1 times 6 is a -6. -1 times a negative x is a positive x. And so I can rewrite this as -42 divided by x minus 6. So -6 plus x is the same as x minus 6, which is what I had here, x minus 6. So now I'm going to rewrite this as 7x divided by x minus 6 plus a -42. Remember, this right here is this. So I'm just rewriting. -42 divided by x minus 6. And now the denominators are the same, so I just add their numerators. So I'm going to get 7x minus 42 divided by x minus 6. Alright, and then the next step is to factor the numerator, which I can. So that's 7 times x minus 6 divided by x minus 6, and now reduce. So I can reduce the x minus 6, and I'm just left with 7. So that's equal to 7. So that's your answer. Alright, but we use the idea of opposites. Notice what you did when you use the idea of opposites. Okay, number 5, we're going to factor the denominators. So here, I can factor this as t plus 6 times t minus 2. And here, I can factor out a 2. I'm left with 2 times t plus 6. And so the LCD, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. I'm going to get 3t minus 2 divided by t plus 6 times t minus 2 minus 5 divided by 2 times t plus 6. Alright, so the LCD will be, remember it's every factor you see, so let's look at this 2 first. So I'm going to have to use a 2. There's only one factor 2 here. There's no other coefficients here other than 1. So I'm going to need a 2. Now my next factor is a t plus 6. I have one factor here. I have one factor here, so I need 1. My next factor is a t minus 2. I have one here. I don't have any here. And that's it. That's your LCD. So your LCD is 2 times t plus 6 times t minus 2. So now we're going to write two fractions with that denominator. 2 times t plus 6 times t minus 2. 2 times t plus 6 times t minus 2. All right, now, this is what I had, and this is what I want. So I'm missing, look at this, I already have these factors, I'm missing the 2. So I need to put a 2 here. What I do to the denominator, I've got to do to the numerator, but both of these have to be multiplied by 2, so put that in parentheses. And then you can distribute, so you're going to say 2 times 3t is 6t, 2 times a negative 2 is a negative 4. And over here, let's see, I have the 2, I have the t plus 6, but I'm missing the t minus 2. So I got to multiply this by t minus 2. What I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. Now, just like the previous problem, you are going to distribute the 5. So I get 5t minus 10. 5 times t is 5t. 5 times negative 2 is a negative 10. And now be careful with subtraction. Now you're going to put this as one fraction. So I get 2 times t plus 6 times t minus 2. And then you're going to have 6t minus 4 minus, remember, put that in parentheses, be on the safe side, just like this. You're subtracting all of this. So now you can distribute the negative 1. So I'm going to get 6t minus 4 minus 5t, and then plus 10, all over the LCD, which is 2 times t plus 6 times t minus 2. Combining like terms, I get 6t minus 5t is t, a negative 4 and a positive 10 is a positive 6, all over 2 times t plus 6 times t minus 2. And then notice I can reduce the t plus 6's, we left with factors of 1, and so the answer is just 1 divided by 2 times 1 is 2 times t minus 2. And so there's your answer. So 1 divided by 2 times t minus 2. Okay, so that takes care of this worksheet.